Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It is Wednesday, the 26th of November. Thank you so much for joining me. We've got high pressure out to the east of the country at the moment. That is encouraging an easterly breeze, but it's also going up a little bit north of the country and coming down as a nor'wester. So we've got an extra warm day on the way. In fact, in the next couple of days here and there around the country, some pretty hot weather coming through, as we've seen off and on so far this month of November. So we're ending the month for most places on a warm note. I say most places because there's a storm south of New Zealand that, as it tracks by, is going to encourage some colder air coming in just to the very south of New Zealand. But elsewhere, warm weather at the moment with those windy nor'westers, which are going to pick up even further as we go through today. And the reason why? The old squash zone, high pressure out to the east and a storm well to our south down near Antarctica. So between these two systems, northwesterly winds, and they're coming from the Coral Sea area, around Brisbane and northwards. So it's warm, and it comes in as a nor'wester. That's even warmer for eastern parts of the country. So windy weather is kicking in over the next couple of days, mostly due to low pressure south of us and high pressure which is out to our east, but also to some degree sort of ballooning out northwards for a time north of the North Island. So gusty weather comes on through, as I say, over the next 24 hours. We'll see a surge of it starting tomorrow. The main surge comes in tomorrow. Starts here through the Southern Alps. Some gusts around the mountains of Canterbury could be up over 120, 130 kilometres an hour. And as we go through Thursday, the areas in purple or the darker shading, they'll push eastwards. They'll come out further to the coastline. They'll affect the hills and the ranges closer to the east and also the lower part of the North Island. But as you can see, the top of the North Island, blue-green shading, bottom of the scale, not as windy. Still might be a little bit breezy in coastal zones, and the further south you go, the windier it gets, basically. So here is the lunchtime Thursday setup. Big storm south of Tasmania, 958 hectopascals. Quite a big high pressure zone east of the country, 1026. So between the high pressure to our east and the low pressure to our southwest, that is that squash zone. That's why it is windy on Thursday as that goes through northwards. And a little bubble of high pressure to the north of New Zealand. That's why it's not as windy around Auckland and Northland. But like I say, some of the coastal areas could still get a little bit blustery during the day. But the worst of the winds pretty much over the South Island and through the Southern Alps. Look at the polar change coming in for Tasmania. I can't believe how many cold changes they're getting compared to New Zealand. In fact, on Monday next week, December 1st, there's a cold change coming into Melbourne, 14 degrees or so. At the same latitude, you come over to New Zealand, you're sort of in around Hamilton-ish area, Taranaki. Those temperatures are going to be into the 20s on Monday. So Australia is getting much colder weather than we are. But the polar boundary here on Friday does come close to southern New Zealand. So you may notice the temperatures down again if you live in the very south. Into the North Island, we've got some showers coming through. The leftovers of that west coast rain band on Thursday falls apart into the North Island on Friday, and because we've got daytime heating as well, we may see a few thunderstorms around, or at least just some heavy downpours. So it's not like at the highest end of the level. It's not up here into the severe thunderstorm risk, not at this early stage, but certainly a chance of some thunderstorms. And even if you don't really have a thunderstorm, you get the idea, sort of some heavy downpours here and there around the North Island on Friday. As we go into Saturday, there is a southwesterly change. Behind those showers is a slightly cooler airflow. The polar boundary pretty big and significant still, but it's south of New Zealand, but close enough to Southland and Otago and Fiordland that you will feel the temperatures down. But you don't have to go very far northwards before your airflow is coming from parts of Australia. So it's not going to be that cold, even though there is a sou'wester and that polar boundary is pretty close to us. Sunday, the next low is developing. This one is still not 100% locked in, but there could be some heavy rain and some strong winds as this comes through. Air pressure dropping down quite a bit to 982 there. So that is getting into the territory where it could have gale force winds around it, what we would call a storm. Very small though, and some of the models I've seen have shown this low not quite as aggressive, but it's definitely worth monitoring going into the weekend, especially if you're tramping, hiking anywhere in Fiordland, Westland, West Coast. Just worth monitoring that one as we go on through. So we'll have more details tomorrow, Thursday, as we update you on that forecast. But if you're in the North Island or the eastern side of the country, doesn't look too bad. In fact, it looks pretty warm and dry, if not hot and dry in some places. And then we go to Monday, the 1st of December, and look at the polar boundary in the south. Temperatures dropping. once more. Like I say, much colder over in Australia as they kick off Monday, December the 1st. But here in the South Island, cold changes pretty much just around Stewart Island, parts of Southland, Fiordland and maybe Otago. Further northwards, yes, there is a southwesterly breeze, but as I mentioned before, you track the origins, it's coming from way off north. So it won't be a cold start to the day for many other regions, but yes, a few showers in the South Island, some colder air brushing by. And then we go to Tuesday of next week and it sinks down in both areas, still affecting Hobart and Tassie, but on our side of things, warmer, but a fair bit of low pressure out in the Tasman Sea. For those of you that are asking me, what is December looking like? I think this weather map kind of shows you what we possibly have. High pressure to the east, pulling down subtropical, warm nor'westers, but also low pressure zones, cold southerlies in the mix. In other words, it's kind of like spring as we go through the next few weeks. If you go by the astronomical calendar, the Earth's journey around the sun, we're still in spring for another 3 more weeks yet, right up until the week before Christmas. So either way, no matter how you look at it, we've got an unsettled weather pattern around New Zealand at the moment. That's all from me. I will see you again tomorrow, Thursday, with our next New Zealand update.